Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. This is a webinar for the Educause community group for AI. And my name is Dr. Szymon Machajewski, and I welcome our host, Heather Brown, as one of the CGs of the committee there, or community group. And just wanted to welcome everyone. Please feel free to share in the chat where you're connecting from. We'd love to hear where you're hailing from. But yes, today we're going to talk about really how we can optimize AI tools for academic use. So just to set the context, the community group is hosted by the Educause community connect system. So feel free to join. We have some discussion boards there, a nice library of files, and it's a great way to exchange ideas and findings on AI, especially in connection to education. And today I have just a couple of slides, but mainly I will be showing some demos and kind of hands-on use. I'll show you how you can embed some of the AI functionality in your LMS. So if you are an instructional designer or if you're teaching a class, you might find this very useful. And so we'll talk a little bit about where the privacy and security of the system is as well. We, of course, are very mindful of that, but also accessibility. So that's an important piece of the puzzle for us. So I have just a couple of slides. Again, welcome to our webinar. I think it's fair to say that AI has made a big splash, and I would say that the reaction of students is fairly amazing. I encourage you to find this article, Embracing AI, on Educo's website, where they have nice video with some quotes from students. And one of them says, we are excited that there's a tool that makes learning a lot easier. And our employers will be looking for students who are AI literate and know how to use these tools. So we see that the adoption by students is actually slightly faster than by faculty. And I think that's understandable. We faculty have a lot more to lose in terms of tinkering with things, especially ones that are black boxes where you can't quite explain how they come up with answers. So these were some of the concerns that we have seen initially with AI. Now, I do want to touch on kind of the theory that really stands behind AI and opens the door and creates a hope that it's going to really impact in a positive way education in general. And that's the theory of zone of proximal development. You're probably familiar with Vygotsky. The idea is that tasks that are too easy tend to create boredom, but also often are incentives for cheating, because when students don't see the sense, just see as busy work, oftentimes they look for shortcuts, versus if tasks are too difficult and maybe the stakes are too high, there's again where difficulties in learning happen. So we're looking for the zone of proximal development where we have some explanation that matches our expectation, and tasks are just difficult enough that we want to continue to the next one, and we see the results behind us. So this zone of proximal development also aligns with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow. And this is, of course, where Dr. Bloom in the 80s came up with the 2 Sigma paper on how tutoring really can be very helpful, perhaps even move grades by 2 standard deviations or 2 letter grades. Whether this will be the end result of AI, we will see, but certainly there's the promise and some theory behind it. So I wanted to introduce you to this tool called Perplexity. And if you are already using Perplexity, please feel free to share how you're using it in the chat. Also, if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. Heather is going to monitor that. And if we can't respond to them right away, we will have some time towards the end. But I think that the differences between Perplexity and some of the other tools currently available are important. So let's jump into the actual Perplexity system to really see how it's different. Well, first, what you will notice about Perplexity is that when you navigate to this URL, you do not have to log in. Now, that's a tremendous barrier leveling, especially for students. Because when we ask students to create an account somewhere, we obviously are opening the door for privacy issues. And students are just learning. They often come from extreme viewpoints, such as I will not open an account at all, versus I'm concerned about whether a credit card will be asked of me. So the fact that you can go to Perplexity.ai and use it anonymously, it's a big innovation that we see from very few AI vendors. Then you can create a free account. So a free account allows you to then track your questions. It allows you to create shared links. It allows you to be part of the shared environment that Perplexity creates. Then you have an option for a pro account. And also recently, Perplexity opened up a way for educational accounts where you can basically purchase a block of licenses, and then you can actually collaborate within your department. So quite a few options there. The free account comes with access to Perplexity basic features, and then you have a few between 5 to 10 questions a day of Pro Perplexity. And the difference here is that when you run a question on the Perplexity system, you asked a question, there is some Googling happening in the background, and it may not be Google search engine, it might be DuckDuckGo or some other system, but you don't do the actual searching. Then AI reads the articles, and then it summarizes the answers. So this is a huge progress in being able to get basic answers without having to spend time on skipping the paid links that are usually at the top of the search. Of course, search engines make their living by suggesting that the paid answers are the right answers or the only answers. So this search system really touches on a very important activity which our industry has struggled with for a while, and that is, how do you find the right resource? And of course, a huge discussion around what does it mean to have the right resource, or what does it mean to even have the right answer. And so where Perplexity is different from many of the other AI systems is that it provides you with sources. So if it uses some data from some source, it will show it. Now, these sources are listed all kind of in bulk where you can review them, or they are also cited within the answer. And then we have follow-up questions that are already proposed. I love the related questions because there is quite a bit of cognitive effort in creating questions, right? So asking the right questions is half of the success. We had Google so far, and we knew how to Google answers, but how to ask the right questions, that's where much of the difficulty resides. The other difference that Perplexity provides is the ability of it to focus. So within Perplexity, and I'm going to move my Grammarly piece. Within Perplexity, you can specify what is going to be the focus of the search. Now, you can search the web. You can search just academic resources, math resources, social media, just look at videos, and then focus on writing. So this is quite helpful. Perplexity is able to look at videos from the perspective that it reads the transcript. So it's able to see the content of videos. And this focus here can be really, really beneficial to academics. So specifically academic sources, right? So if you want to search just within your subject matter of peer-reviewed papers. Now, this is very useful feature, and I think that it touches on that black box problem, right? How does AI know what it's telling me? So notice here that we're not using AI as the brain, but we are using the brain to actually search data and to clarify questions and then we can ask follow-up questions. So many of the LLMs that we've seen so far have certain wisdom, and that wisdom is gained by training it, and it has some data, which is why in some of the systems we've seen answers like, my knowledge is limited to this year. So this is where Perplexity is different. It still uses AI, but it uses AI to do the work of searching on current sources. Now, once you have searched and you like an answer, you can share it. Now, this is hugely important because sharing links can be very useful to you as an academic, whether you are sharing with department members or with your students. And the beauty of the search of the shared link is that when you copy and paste this link or you copy it from the icon, it's going to simply point you to this answer. So when someone clicks on this link, they do not regenerate the answer, but they see what you saw. Important for academics because I want to review the content before my students see it. And so I want to be able to read the sources. Perhaps this is something that is quite useful to my students. I will go ahead and search for this specific snapshot in time. This is sharing the actual answer that I found. This is going to be an important distinction when we get to the no-code implementation, where we actually want the opposite, where for every link, we want the system to regenerate the answer based on current knowledge. So once we share the link, we can also then put it into collections, which are kind of like folders. It helps you to organize your research. Beyond that, Perplexity has also a plugin for the browser. Now, this plugin is important to us because this plugin required that Perplexity opens up their system to some degree. For example, if the plugin required us to sign up for an account first, it would slow down their adoption. So the plugin works along with an anonymous access. And when you ask for something through the plugin, it's going to take you to Perplexity. If you're logged in, it will use that system. But the plugin is important to us because Perplexity had to open up this kind of a no-code access for the plugin to work. So more about that in just a second. All right, so this is the basic approach of Perplexity. I do want to mention one more thing in that when you do open an account, it's going to ask you for who you are. Somewhere here in the setup for the profile, there it is, the profile. It's going to ask who you are. Now that's important because all the answers that it'll produce for you, right? The prompt for those answers is going to include who you are, and then you answer the different questions that it has for you. So this is helpful because when it answers on the topic, it takes my angle on it. So it will point out things that are useful to me. So this is once you have a profile created, and again, a free profile will work here just fine.
Simon?
Yes.
Sarah asks, how anonymous is anonymous? Is Perplexity still tracking data like IP address, browser version, location, other sites visited, other tracking pixels or advertising data, etc.?
Great question. So first of all, there is a privacy statement issued from Perplexity. So what is right? So privacy statement is available. And Perplexity, of course, in the privacy statement promises that, as most of these systems, that they do not track, and we can navigate to the actual privacy statement through any of these links. Now, at the anonymous level, they act like any other website. I am sure that they have log files where they can see your IP. And of course, your internet service provider can see your IP address as well, right? So anonymity doesn't really exist in our system, even as advanced as the internet. Let's say that you downloaded the Tor web browser and you're connecting to what's called the dark web, right? So your connection from your home to the ISP still can be tracked. So they know that you connected to Tor. And trust me, there are ways to backtrack, right? So that you can be located, which is how the great pirate was caught through a discussion forum that they analyzed, and they were able to identify. But the point I'm trying to make is that the anonymity here can be balanced against other websites. Yes, I'm sure that they track how you got there. So there is a refer header in web browser logs. Beyond that, whether they are using any shared tracking like Amazon and Facebook, I don't think their privacy statement touches on that, but I kind of doubt it because there's great competitive kind of alignment between what Perplexity is trying to do, which is they're trying to own the search business. And so Facebook also, as well as Google and Amazon, are deep into that. So it's showing of ads. It's basically their ability to help advertisers. So they're competitors, right? So I don't think right now they would collaborate as closely. But our expectation of anonymity should be balanced. At the same time, you don't have to create an account. So if you were to open your browser in a private window, and in the private window, of course, your cookies would be limited. You are not logged into various websites. It would be an enterprise standard for anonymity, right? So kind of a balanced view of it. But for our students, at least, they don't have to log in. We know that students interact with technology differently when they are identified and when they're not. To the extent that when we open up doors for them to talk about mental health, students are not likely to open even to a human being. There's a very famous approach of asking students, a discussion forum on the first day, write about yourself. What do you expect from this course? And it's uncomfortable, I think, for students to answer that because it's a high risk forum for them to express themselves and maybe say something wrong from the very beginning. For the instructor, of course, it's meant as opening collaboration, creating some common ground. So we have seen some posts recently on social media where instructors are complaining that students are using AI to generate those entry-level forum posts. And they do that perhaps because the risk is so high for them. They don't want to overshare. At the same time, they want to be graded well. So if you include in that forum, and what do you expect from this course? Well, I don't know what this course is about. I'll have AI ask the right questions, right? So I think that anonymity is on one hand, opening the door where students, when they're not logged in, they might be actually asking questions that they would not ask when they are signed in, especially through university resources. So I think there's some positive benefits to anonymity. At the same time, just like in Google, you can be logged in or you can be not logged in. However, none of that is completely invisible, especially to our friends from NSA and such. So
And
looking at, yes, was there
a
another question?
follow-up question would be, does Perplexity use the input by the user, the input data to train its model?
Right. So all of this is answered in this post. We can only we only know what they tell us, right?
Right.
And when you pay, technically there's an agreement, a long legal agreement that nobody reads. So we can only kind of see what they say, and they say that they do not sell, trade, or share personal information. Also, when it comes to training, I think we sometimes overestimate how valuable our data is. Training AI is a very expensive procedure, so we might feel like our questions are so valuable, but actually chances of our questions to be immediately reused for training would be fairly low. However, they're often used to track what kind of questions are being asked, and I'm sure that this is very useful to them. So I encourage you to review the privacy policy. They do provide higher levels of compliance because they do have enterprise licenses. So especially if the school is concerned or organization is concerned with privacy, getting the enterprise license might be a way to mitigate that. I also want to point out that Perplexity has opened up access to what they call Perplexity Labs. What this allows you to do is to select from a various open source LLMs and see the difference, see how they work. So one of the reasons why anonymous access is available from systems like Perplexity is because we have an open source movement within AI. Open source simply means that when software is created, in addition to the executable code and the maybe use of code such through the cloud systems is provided, the source code, the humanly readable code, and the code that allows you to run your own version is also shared. This was very successful with the Linux operating system, which is really what gave the internet its power, because everyone was able to run their own server and the software wasn't too expensive. So open source works. It worked for Chrome, which is also open source. Firefox is open source. So these open source systems, Llama is of course done by Meta, but there is Mistral produced in Europe, Falcon, very effective open source systems where the cost of getting them, because they're already pre-trained, someone already paid for the R&D, you get it for free, you just have to pay for running it. This is where the anonymous versions are possible because they're not as expensive as some of the high-end newest systems, perhaps coming from Anthropic or OpenAI. However, if you do prescribe for the pro version, you do have access both to the OpenAI LLMs and the Anthropic ones, such as Sonnet and others. So let's get back into kind of the meat of our presentation here, because in addition just to introduction, we want to know more about how it's going to be helpful to educators. So a few of these links I want to share with you, and actually let me just do a little trick where I will share with you the PDF file. I'm going to stop sharing momentarily, and I'll share with you in the chat the PDF so that you can click on any of the links we're presenting on. You can click on any of the links immediately along with us. All right, let's return to the presentation. Okay, so first of all, Perplexity teachers. Perplexity has oriented its business towards educators, which is very encouraging. And it created this little multi-day email course where if you sign up, it's going to walk you through a few examples of how Perplexity can be useful to educators. So we see this focus. There's also focus with licensing on educators. And I personally think it's really a positive step. Now, there's also a reference here to Richard Campbell's article on how to use Perplexity in the classroom. I encourage you to review it. We have Getting Started article. Also, Perplexity right now is giving away annual subscriptions to any universities that can have their students join with a free account. And you will see some heavy hitters here who already went over the board here, necessary to get the license. But basically, as you sign up with an EDU account or EDU email, you have an option of getting one free month, or if there's enough people joining from the university, then the school actually gets one year of access. So this is a nice entry into education. We see some positives coming out. So let's go ahead and look at the detail of today's presentation. That is how to use no-code options to help us either in online courses or in department work. So this information I had Perplexity put together. And Perplexity actually does not document this on their website. It is documented on Reddit and some of the other systems. Now, I'll tell you right away that what we're doing right now is the same process that the Chrome plugin is using. So as long as the Chrome plugin is working, your links will work as well. right? So just in case you're wondering how big of a hack is it, it is a little bit of a hack, but it is using the same functionality as the Chrome plugin. And the trick is quite simple, and that is you will feed whatever prompt you want Perplexity to process through the URL. Now, I do want to note the difference between this procedure and just sharing a link. And I will show you an example of what I mean here. So if I was to create a link that asks what time it is and then share it with you or students, it will look like this. It has a unique URL. This is the hash that it generates. And as we said before, when you share a link, it doesn't recreate that content every time, but it allows you to vet it and then share it. So I asked what time it was earlier today. So this is not the current time, right? So this was that snapshot in time. However, if you use the technique that I just described, and notice that this URL has that Q equals, and then I typed in what time it is. Now the percentage sign 20, that's a URL encoding. We'll talk about it in a moment. But when I click on that, you see it basically posts this as a prompt to Perplexity, and then you have the current results. Now, in addition to the current results, you still have the related questions, and the student can continue the conversation. Now, that is a small trick, but huge implications in that you now can create a prompt in your course where you perhaps are saying, please be an AI advisor in my computer class. The class is about JavaScript. Ask these questions. And when you submit it through this URL embedding, the students will be able to jump right into a live agent, and the prompt is processed, is executed. So I'll show you kind of another example. Here is the basic URL that's encoded. Now the basic URL is relatively short. The prompt that I shared with my students is quite long. But in this instance, it's actually not necessary for AI to process this prompt every time the student clicks on it, because nothing is changing in the prompt, and I like the answer that the system provided. And now the student continues the conversation, right? So that's the basic share link approach. Now, this still allows me to include this link in an LMS, and students, without logging in, can jump right into a tutorial session with AI. However, if I wanted to make it more dynamic, and I decided, okay, we're going to search for something different, so now I would go ahead and follow the other approach. And right in the browser, I can now type in something like, who is winning the US election, right? Or maybe who will win, whichever one might be funnier. But if I now ask something that needs to be processed every time, I can do that. Now, I've used this technique in that AI Explorer literacy tool, because first in that web page, we ask, what is the course that you're teaching? And when you submitted something like chess, we were able then to create the prompts. So we would ask something like, create 5 questions for a quiz in a class of chess. So as long as you can dynamically create text, you can use this no-code approach to have the results be processed. So let's say that you're developing a Word document, and this Word document allows you to put a link in, and you would like to make sure that what are the current accessibility requirements in my state, right? You may not want to freeze in time this particular answer. You might want to open it up so that when next year an instructor clicks on that link, they actually get the current results. but it goes even beyond that. So anytime you would like to demonstrate what AI can do, and especially AI that's connected to the internet, right, with ability to access current knowledge, you can go ahead and embed it here as a link. Now, when I embed it here as a link, notice that we have spaces available. Spaces can be difficult in hyperlinks. So it's actually useful to take this text, and you can use various tools, but Perplexity does this well. You just say encode for URL this text, and it's going to basically spit out %20 when there's a space. So a link that's ready to be inserted into a Word document would look like this. And again, the spaces, it all depends on the browser. Maybe if you're emailing it, it'll act differently. So when you encode it, when you encode your string, that's the safest way to do that. And as someone visits the link, they will be able to get the answer. So notice that if you just feed the clear text, there will be a different set of questions created every time, right? If you share this specific link, you basically are sharing these specific questions. So for no code approach, this can be useful for creating documentation, for making your website more powerful. And this is exactly what we did in the Explorer tool. Let me go ahead and demonstrate the tool. So first we asked, what is your class? And then for every time you click on Generate button, you can see at the bottom of the screen, the browser basically tells us what is going to be the URL. I can copy this link address, and it basically puts a fairly long prompt, but it embeds the word chess into the various parts of the prompt. So if I was to go ahead and click on that link, we simply send the query, or the Q stands for query. We send this query to Perplexity, and because we don't know what class you chose or which one you're exploring, everything else stays the same, but the class changes. Therefore, all the answers here are current and dynamic. Now, this is not all that different than what Google does. So if you go to google.com/search $Q equals, you can simply put the Google search right there in the URL. And so this may be what inspired the approach here by Perplexity. So let me come back briefly here. As you start relying on Perplexity as a tool, it would be fairly important to track the, let me see. It'll be important to track the status of Perplexity as a site. Let's see what's happening here with my, what is the server status of Perplexity? So Perplexity has a URL that we can track for uptime, and I'm not sure why it's not working at the moment, but our expectation is to see here whether the servers are working or not. And so, as in every live demo, there's plenty of things to not work as effectively. So at this point, are there any questions? Anything that we should follow up at this point?
There's nothing in the chat so far.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. So this technique really helps you to be in the early adoption of AI, because it is not based on copy and paste. So notice that much of documentation today for educators really talks about logging into ChatGPT and then maybe copying a prompt from some document and trying it out on your own. This approach, copy and paste, can be a very dangerous approach, because when you license ChatGPT on your own without the university looking at privacy and accessibility, you actually might be opening yourself up on difficulties. Now, early adopters are more likely to take on some risk, and they are usually the people that stand at the AT&T store, right, overnight to get the iPhone, and that's fine. We see the early majority and late majority usually engaging when things become easier to use, when they are more of a user and interaction. So where we're trying to head now is going away from prompt engineering or prompt design. Prompt design is probably a better expression here. So we don't want to write to AI extensively. That's like going back to the days of DOS or Linux, where you had the black screen and you had to type in all your commands. We want to be in the times of Windows or smartphone where you click on icons. It's discoverability that we're after here. So that's what this technique with Perplexity allows you to do, is to take certain prompts, embed them behind your Word document links, PowerPoint buttons, website buttons, or right in the LMS, right? You can create either the clear text prompts that are dynamic or the embedded prompts that take you to take your students to Perplexity and allows them to interact with it. For many people, being able just to click on something and see an answer to the question they were looking for, it's eye-opening, right? What can this thing actually do? Obviously, people are not trusting AI, and there's so many stories and on opinions to extremes. But what we see is that when people start using the systems, they kind of find them very, very useful. So I want to also bring about or bring to your attention the paper by Fons in 22, where they were exploring the idea of entangled pedagogy. And the quote here says that entangled pedagogy encourages teachers, students, and others to collaborate whilst embracing uncertainty, imperfection, openness, and honestly to develop pedagogical knowledge that is collective, responsive, and ethical. So we have seen this entangled pedagogy take place when online learning came about, right? So if you were open with students, maybe you took some great ideas from them, how to enhance your course, or how to use Google, or how to use maybe how to even increase accessibility in your course. Now, students will have a lot to say about how to use AI within your course. But Perplexity can be the common ground because, again, it doesn't require accounts and it can be a very collaborative system. I also want to mention the process that we see more clearly of certain skills being deflated and certain skills being inflated. And I think our title of this presentation about no-code solution touches on that. I'm a programmer. I love programming. Programming to me is like playing a game. You know, there's an if statement that doesn't work, and 5 minutes later it works, and you say, "Whoa, great!" So I love programming, but not all people like this kind of activity. So we see where AI can create code, and actually, in many ways, it might not make so much code even necessary. So some skills are going to be deflated. I think it's a good analogy to think about what happened in industrial age or industrial revolution, where it used to be the strong back, you know, being able to work hard, dig a hole very fast. That gave you an edge. Whereas when the machinery came about, well, a human being cannot compete with a machine on how fast the hole will be dug, right? It's simply, we're not in that, can't even compete with that. So we'll see some skills being deflated and some skills being inflated. And so those are kind of conversations I think each department needs to have within their subject matter, right? Which skills will require the attention, maybe new courses being opened within these skills, and then which skills might be taken over by more technology. And finally, I want to mention that Perplexity is a for-profit company. So there are other companies even today that do what Perplexity does. In other words, you can feed anonymous, clear string queries to them. Perplexity right now is probably the biggest one, with the most investment, but they are not focused by any means just on education. And I found this particular piece of their website quite kind of telling, because as educators, we look at websites and then we look for things like contrast, right? So accessibility is kind of a second nature to us. So this particular website lacks the contrast here between the background and the foreground. So of course, they are here to do something new, and for now they work fine. I think it's the method itself that helps us to really bring value in connecting buttons and links to AI directly without copy and paste process. I also wanted to share a few books with you. I recommend Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, which touches on quite a few areas where education and AI meet. I also want to recommend David Epstein's The Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. I think that this book, an older book by today, but it really laid the ground for AI well, because today we see people can synthesize various approaches and various ideas, can progress much quicker than people who are in a specialization, and maybe they see that the specialization is actually becoming quite simple with the new technology. I also would recommend Lex Friedman's podcast. He is a scientist from Google, but has interviewed many people, and the kind of podcasting that he practices is the long form. So he has some 6-hour and longer interviews, but this is where you really learn in depth. One of the newer videos there is about Elon Musk's company and the idea that they have with Neuralink, which is embedding basically an electronic device in the brain, so that as you think about, say, moving cursor on the screen, the cursor actually moves. And so they've been able to successfully implement that or implant it into a human being, and it works. So kind of amazing how we might be able to go directly from thinking into a technical implementation. There is another product called Brain GPT, where you put on something that looks like a hat, and it's supposed to be able to read text, right? So in demos it works. We'll see how far these things get, but really interesting developments taking place very quickly. And I recommend Steven Johnson. All his books are great, but The Wonderland is a book about how innovations happen across the world, and how it's having fun with things is where innovation happens. Innovations across music are very well documented, but even the idea that the world was discovered by pursuit of spices, right? So the huge business of spices, which they're not required for living. The spices were kind of an add-on, and how innovation to this day is discovered by play. And so at the end of the book, he touches on AI. Again, not a recent book, but a really nice build-up. And again, I invite everybody to our community group at Educause. So at this point, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we will have the recording of this of this webinar, and if anyone would like to share how they've worked with Perplexity, the discussion forum on the Educause community site is going to work really well.
Simon, thank you. I don't see any questions. People are thanking you that they found it really informative. Will you be attending the annual conference, Educause?
Yes, I will be actually one of the AI experts at the table. There's a session there where we'll have quite a few conversations about AI, but I'll have a poster session about AI for accessibility, and then another one on implementing AI at the enterprise level. So having to do with privacy and implementing kind of bulk licenses for universities.
Oh, awesome. That sounds wonderful. I'll be there. I'll be there, and we have an open house, or we're having a get together, community group AI. I'll post it in We're having it on Tuesday, the 22nd. And I'll put it in the chat. Tuesday, the 22nd at 11:30. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be. But you can mark that down. I'd love to meet you. If you can pop by.
Sounds great. Yes,
Yeah.
looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much for the work you do, and Danny, and really some great stuff coming out of the group.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we look forward to having you again. This has been fantastic. Yeah. All right. And Simon will forward me the recording, and I'll post that tomorrow or the next day. And yeah, so everyone, thank you. Thank you, Simon. This has been fantastic. Everyone have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Or morning, or wherever you are.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.